This happened 3 months ago, but I'm finally ready to tell this story. Fair warning, it's long, but I promise it's worth the read. Some details have been changed for privacy, but the core events are exactly as they happened. My name is Clara, and at 28, I thought I had my life perfectly planned out. I'm an event planner in Savannah, Georgia, ironic, considering what happened. And I'd been with my fiancé Danny Walsh for 3 years. Danny was everything I thought I wanted: successful financial analyst, charming, came from money, and seemed genuinely devoted to me. We'd gotten engaged 18 months earlier in what felt like a fairy tale proposal on Forsyth Park. The wedding was set for October 15th at the historic Savannah Foundation's Harper Folks House, a stunning antebellum mansion with Spanish moss draping the ceremony space. I'd planned hundreds of events, but planning your own wedding while working full-time is a special kind of exhausting. By early October, I was running on pure adrenaline and detailed spreadsheets. My maid of honor was Sophie Carter, my best friend since we were 8 years old back in Beaufort. Sophie and I had been inseparable growing up: sleepovers every weekend, shared secrets, dreams of being each other's maids of honor someday. She was the charismatic one, the one who could walk into any room and immediately become the center of attention. I was always more behind the scenes, which worked perfectly for my career in event planning. Sophie had been staying at my apartment frequently those last few weeks to help with wedding prep. She lived about 40 minutes away and claimed the commute was too much with all our final appointments. Danny was supposedly swamped with work, trying to clear his schedule before our 2-week honeymoon in Tuscany. I barely saw him except when he'd come over after work, usually finding Sophie and me surrounded by wedding favors, seating charts, or vendor communications. My mother, Marjorie, had driven down from Charleston to help with the final week preparations. Mom has always been protective of me, maybe overly so, and she'd made some subtle comments about Sophie that I initially brushed off. "That girl seems awfully comfortable in your space," she said one morning, finding Sophie making coffee in my kitchen at 7 a.m. while still in her pajamas. "Mom, she's my best friend. We've been sharing everything since we were kids." "Exactly my point, honey. You're not kids anymore." I thought she was being overprotective. Sophie had always been comfortable everywhere. It was part of her charm. The Tuesday before the Saturday wedding, we had our final dress fittings. My bridesmaid Emily Reed, who works with me at Magnolia Events, came along to help wrangle the other girls. Emily is observant by nature. It makes her excellent at catching vendor mistakes and client issues before they become problems. At the bridal shop, while we were adjusting the bridesmaids' dresses, Emily pulled me aside. "Clara, has Sophie seemed off to you lately?" "Off how?" "She's been on her phone constantly, but every time someone gets close, she hides it. And when you were getting your bustle adjusted, she kept staring at your dress with this weird expression. Not happy excitement, something else." I laughed it off. "She's probably stressed about her maid of honor speech. You know Sophie, she wants everything to be perfect." But Emily's comment stuck with me. That evening, Sophie came over to help assemble the welcome bags for out-of-town guests. Danny stopped by around 8 p.m. with Thai food for all of us. I went to the kitchen to get plates, and when I came back, I found them standing very close together, whispering. They jumped apart when they saw me. "What are you two conspiring about?" I asked jokingly. "Just making sure the bachelor party stays under control," Danny said quickly. "Sophie was giving me grief about my college buddies." Sophie laughed, but it sounded forced. "Someone has to keep the boys in line." The moment felt strange, but I was so exhausted and focused on the wedding timeline that I filed it away as pre-wedding weirdness. The next morning, after Sophie left for work and Danny went home to pack for his bachelor party weekend, I was cleaning my living room when I found something that made my stomach drop: a cufflink under my couch. Not just any cufflink, an expensive gold one engraved with DW in elegant script. I recognized them immediately. They were Danny's graduation gift from his parents when he finished his MBA. He wore them to every important event. But why was one under my couch? Danny always took them off at the front door and put them in the small bowl on my entryway table. How had it gotten all the way to the living room, and how had it fallen off? I held that cufflink for a long time, my mind racing through possibilities. The logical explanations felt flimsy. A tiny seed of suspicion planted itself in my chest. I couldn't shake my uneasiness. Danny was at his bachelor party in Charleston, a golf weekend with his college friends and his brother Greg. Sophie was at work, and I had a relatively quiet day with just a few vendor calls. But Emily's observation about Sophie's secretive behavior, combined with finding that cufflink, had my intuition screaming. When Emily came over for lunch to go over final timeline details, I confided my concerns. Clara, I've been doing events for 5 years, and I've seen a lot of relationships. Trust your gut. It's telling you something for a reason. But Sophie's been my best friend for 20 years. She was there when Dad died, when I struggled through college, when I started my business. She wouldn't. People can surprise you, especially when they want something you have. Emily suggested something that felt extreme but also necessary, setting up a way to monitor my apartment. You're an event planner. You use phone apps to monitor vendor deliveries and client meetings all the time. Just think of this as logistics management. That afternoon, I downloaded an app that would send me notifications when motion was detected in my apartment and could be activated remotely. I positioned my iPad discreetly on my bookshelf with a clear view of the living room, disguised among my wedding planning books. Thursday morning, I had my final dress fitting appointment. Sophie was supposed to meet me there, but texted that she had a client emergency and would catch up with me later. I thought nothing of it. We both had demanding jobs. At 2:47 p.m., while I was having my bustle adjusted for the third time, my phone buzzed with a motion alert. My heart started pounding. Sophie was supposed to be at work. Danny was in Charleston. Who was in my apartment? I managed to keep it together through the rest of the fitting, but the moment I got in my car, I opened the app's live feed. What I saw made my hands shake so badly I almost dropped my phone. Sophie and Danny were on my couch. Together. Not just together. Together. Danny's shirt was unbuttoned. Sophie was in just her bra and the skirt she'd worn to work. They were kissing with an intensity that spoke of familiarity, not a moment of weakness. I sat in my car outside the bridal shop, watching my fiancé and my best friend betray me in my own home, and felt something cold and sharp settle in my chest. Not just heartbreak, fury. I saved the video automatically recording to my cloud storage, then forced myself to drive home calmly. I texted Sophie that I was leaving the dress shop and would be home in 20 minutes, giving them time to clean up their betrayal. When I walked in, Sophie was in my kitchen making coffee, fully dressed, hair perfectly smooth. Hey, how was the final fitting? Did they fix the bustle issue? Her casual tone, the way she could look me in the eye and lie so effortlessly, made my anger crystallize into something harder. Danny was nowhere to be seen, but I could smell his cologne lingering in my living room. It was perfect, I said. Where's Danny? I thought he was in Charleston. He is. I think they're golfing right now. Why? The ease of her lie was breathtaking. I excused myself to go to the bathroom and checked the app footage. Danny had left through my back door just 3 minutes before I arrived. They had this choreographed. That evening, after Sophie left to prepare for tomorrow's rehearsal, I sat down and really examined the video footage. This wasn't a moment of weakness or a recent development. They moved together with comfort, familiarity. Sophie knew exactly where Danny kept his spare clothes in my closet. Clothes I now realized he'd been leaving there not for convenience, but for cover-up. I scrolled back through my cloud storage and found other clips from recent weeks that I'd ignored as glitches. Sophie arriving at my apartment with a key I'd given her for emergencies, but hours before she said she'd be there. Danny's car in my parking lot when he'd claimed to be at work. Motion detected in my bedroom in the middle of the afternoon. How long had this been going on? I spent hours that night going through my phone, looking at recent interactions with fresh eyes. Sophie's insistence on staying at my place. Her detailed questions about Danny's work schedule. The way she'd been almost pushing me to work late or run errands, creating opportunities. But the moment that broke something inside me was when I found a text thread I'd missed between Sophie's phone, which she'd left unlocked on my counter while showering last week, and an unknown number that I now realized was Danny's work phone. Sophie, 2 more days and she'll be out of the picture. Think you can wait that long? Unknown, barely. This whole thing is torture. But after Saturday, we won't have to pretend anymore. Sophie, I can't wait to see her face when she realizes. She thinks she's so perfect, so deserving of everything. Unknown, don't be cruel, Soph. She's still my friend. Sophie, she's competition. Always has been. But not for much longer. They weren't just betraying me, they were planning to let me go through with the wedding, then break it to me afterward. I would have been legally married to a man who was in love with my best friend, and she was looking forward to my humiliation. That's when I knew, this couldn't be a private confrontation. This needed to be as public as their betrayal was intimate. I barely slept Thursday night, but by Friday morning, I had clarity. If Sophie and Danny wanted to play games with my life, my emotions, and my trust, they were about to learn that you don't mess with an event planner who has access to audiovisual equipment and a captive audience. I called Emily at 6 a.m. I need your help, and I need you to not ask questions until I explain everything. Emily came over before work, and I showed her the footage and the texts. Her reaction was immediate and satisfying. "Oh, hell no. What do you need me to do?" "Help me plan one more event." The rehearsal and rehearsal dinner were scheduled for Friday evening. The rehearsal itself would be at 5 p.m. at Harper Folk's house, followed by dinner in their private dining room. 43 people, both families, the wedding party, plus significant others. I called Sarah Kent, the venue coordinator, and arranged a meeting under the pretense of finalizing the next day's logistics. "Sarah, I need to add one element to tonight's dinner. I want to show a tribute video, just family photos and memories. Do you have AV capabilities?" "Of course. We have a projector and screen in the dining room. I can have tech support set it up whenever you need." "Perfect. I'll bring everything on a USB drive." "And Sarah? No matter what happens during the presentation, please don't stop the video or turn off the equipment unless I specifically tell you to. Sometimes people get emotional during these tributes, but it's important to let them play through." Sarah agreed, probably thinking I was just being thorough about managing family drama. Emily helped me compile the tribute video Friday afternoon. We started with genuinely sweet content, childhood photos of Sophie and me, pictures from Danny's and my early relationship, family moments. The first 3 minutes were exactly what guests would expect, a loving retrospective of relationships and friendships. Then came the evidence. Screenshots of the text conversations, time-stamped and clearly showing the phone numbers. The motion-activated video footage from my apartment, edited to remove the most intimate moments but leaving no doubt about what was happening. The audio from Thursday's encounter, crystal clear. We ended with a simple black screen and white text, "There will be no wedding tomorrow. Thank you for your understanding." The video was 12 minutes total. I saved it to 3 separate USB drives and gave one to Emily as backup. My mother had driven down Thursday night and was staying at my apartment. Friday morning, I told her everything. "I knew something was wrong with that girl," she said, furious but proud. "What do you need me to do?" "Just be there tonight. And maybe, keep Sophie from leaving until everyone's seen what they need to see." Mom smiled grimly. "Honey, that girl won't be going anywhere until I say she can." The hardest part was acting normal during the actual rehearsal. Danny had driven back from Charleston that afternoon, full of stories about golf and his brother's terrible jokes. He kissed me when he arrived, and I had to fight not to recoil. Sophie was radiant, playing the perfect maid of honor, fussing over my dress and making jokes with the other bridesmaids. Greg, Danny's older brother and best man, pulled me aside after we ran through the ceremony. "Clara, I have to say, you seem remarkably calm for a bride. Most of them are basket cases by now." "I'm just ready," I told him, which was completely true. During the cocktail hour before dinner, I watched Sophie and Danny carefully. They were good, maintaining appropriate distance, interacting normally with others. But I caught small moments, Sophie's hand brushing Danny's when she passed him a drink. Danny's eyes following Sophie when she moved around the room. The way they both avoided being in the same conversation group, as if they didn't trust themselves. As we moved into the dining room, I felt a strange calm settle over me. For weeks, I'd been anxious about every detail of this wedding. Now, with one decision, all of that stress was gone. There would be no wedding to worry about. Sarah had the projector set up perfectly, and I discreetly handed her the USB drive while guests were finding their seats. "Ready whenever you are," she whispered. Danny's father stood to give a toast, followed by Sophie's parents, then my mom. Warm words about love, commitment, friendship, and family. Sophie gave a beautiful speech about our 20-year friendship and how happy she was to see me marrying such a wonderful man. Danny talked about how lucky he was to find someone who understood him completely. I listened to their words and marveled at how convincingly people can lie when they have to. Finally, it was my turn. I stood up, USB drive hidden in my palm, heart surprisingly steady. I wanted to thank everyone for being here tonight and for supporting Danny and me. These relationships, family, friendship, love, they're the most important things we have. They're built on trust, honesty, and loyalty. I paused, looking around the room at faces I'd known for years. Some of these people had no idea what was coming. Others, like Greg and my mom, might be about to discover something that would change how they saw people they loved. Before we wrap up tonight, I have a little surprise. I put together a video tribute to show you the relationships that brought us all here. Sarah, would you mind starting the presentation? The lights dimmed, the screen lit up, and my plan went into motion. The first few minutes of the video played exactly as planned. Childhood photos of Sophie and me, gap-toothed grins at summer camp, Halloween costumes, high school graduation. Guests smiled and laughed at the sweet memories. Someone said oh when a photo of Danny and me from our first anniversary appeared. Sophie was beaming beside me, probably thinking how thoughtful I was to showcase our friendship so prominently. Danny had his arm around my shoulders, relaxed and happy. Then the tone shifted. The music faded out, and text appeared on the screen, but not all relationships are what they seem. I felt Danny tense beside me. Sophie's smile faltered slightly, but she probably thought this was leading into some kind of joke or funny story. The first screenshot appeared. Sophie's contact name at the top, clearly visible. A text thread with timestamps from the previous week. Sophie, she's working late again tonight. Coast is clear. Unknown, on my way. Back door. Sophie, always. The room went very quiet. I heard someone, I think it was Emily, take a sharp breath. The next screenshot showed more of the conversation, including Danny's response from his work phone number, which several people in the room would recognize. Danny, this sneaking around is getting harder. I almost called her by your name yesterday. Sophie, 2 more weeks. Then we can stop pretending. Danny, I feel terrible about this. Sophie, you should have thought of that before you fell in love with me instead of her. Danny's arm dropped from my shoulders. I could feel him staring at me, but I kept my eyes on the screen. More texts appeared, getting progressively more damaging. Plans coordinated around my schedule. Intimate messages. Sophie's commentary about my obliviousness and Danny's guilt. Then came the audio from Thursday afternoon. The sound quality was crystal clear. You could hear Sophie's laugh, Danny's voice saying her name, the unmistakable sounds of intimacy. Oh my God, someone whispered. I think it was one of the bridesmaids. Finally, the video footage from my apartment appeared on the screen. I had edited it carefully, nothing X-rated, but absolutely clear about what was happening. Danny and Sophie on my couch, in my home, betraying me with obvious familiarity and comfort. The room was completely silent except for the audio from the video. 43 people watching my fiancé and my maid of honor destroy my life. The final screenshot was the text conversation that had sealed my decision. Sophie, 2 more days and she'll be out of the picture. Think you can wait that long? Danny, barely. This whole thing is torture. But after Saturday, we won't have to pretend anymore. Sophie, I can't wait to see her face when she realizes. She thinks she's so perfect, so deserving of everything. The video ended with the black screen. There will be no wedding tomorrow. Thank you for your understanding. For what felt like an eternity, nobody moved. The projector hummed quietly. Someone's phone buzzed. Then all hell broke loose. Danny jumped up so fast he knocked over his chair. Clara, I can explain. Sit down, Daniel. My mother's voice cut across the room like ice. She was standing now too, positioned between Sophie and the exit. I think we'd all like to hear this explanation. Sophie's face had gone completely white. She was staring at the screen as if she could will the images away. Clara, this isn't, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. I was surprised by how calm my voice sounded. I understand that my best friend and my fiancé have been having an affair in my home, using the key I gave Sophie for emergencies. I understand that you were planning to let me go through with the wedding tomorrow and then break it to me afterward. I understand that you've been laughing about my obliviousness while I planned what I thought was the most important day of my life. Greg stood up slowly. His face was flushed, and he was staring at his brother with an expression I'd never seen before. Danny, what the hell is wrong with you? Greg, it's not, it's complicated. Complicated. Greg's voice was getting louder. You're getting married tomorrow. Clara has been planning this for months. Our entire family is here. Sophie tried to get up, but my mother stepped closer to her chair. Sophie, honey, I think you should stay put until everyone's had a chance to process this. Mrs. Bennet, I know how this looks, but it looks like you've been screwing your best friend's fiancé and planning to humiliate her at her own wedding. Emily's voice was shaking with anger. Because that's exactly what you've been doing. Danny's father, a usually gentle man, was staring at his son with disgust. Daniel, is this true? Dad, Danny looked around the room at 43 people who had traveled here to celebrate his commitment to me. His college friends, his cousins, his grandmother who had flown in from Phoenix. All of them now knew exactly what kind of man he was. It's true, he said finally. I'm in love with Sophie. Someone gasped. I think it was Danny's mother. Sophie's parents looked like they wanted to disappear into the floor. Sophie finally found her voice. Clara, you have to understand. We didn't plan this. It just happened. We tried to fight it, but you didn't try very hard, I said. Based on these text messages, you've been carrying on for months. Planning around my work schedule. Using my home. Discussing my humiliation like it was entertainment. I turned to address the entire room. I want everyone to know that I'm not angry at all of you for their choices. You came here in good faith to support what you thought was a loving relationship. I'm sorry you had to see this, but I felt you deserved to know the truth before you spent tomorrow celebrating a lie. I picked up my purse from the back of my chair. The vendors have been notified. The venue will provide details about gift returns and travel changes. Emily has everyone's contact information if you need anything. Clara, wait. Danny reached for my arm, but I stepped away. Wait for what, Danny? For you to explain how you accidentally fell in love with Sophie? How you accidentally planned an affair around my work schedule? How you accidentally decided to let me marry you while you were in love with someone else? I never meant for it to happen like this. You meant for it to happen after the wedding. That's worse. I looked at Sophie one more time. 20 years of friendship, and I was surprised to realize I felt more disappointed than heartbroken. I trusted you with everything. My home, my relationship, my happiness. You decided it was all worth less than what you wanted. Sophie's eyes filled with tears. Clara, please. You're my best friend. No, I said quietly. I was your best friend. Best friends don't do this. I looked around the room one more time. Greg caught my eye and nodded slightly. An acknowledgement, maybe an apology for his brother's actions. Emily gave me a thumbs up. My mother looked proud and fierce. There will be no wedding tomorrow, I said. But there will be a party. I've paid for everything, and I'm not letting good food and an open bar go to waste. Consider it a celebration of finding out the truth before I made the biggest mistake of my life. I walked toward the exit, then turned back. Oh, and Sophie? I'll need my house key back. You can leave it with my mother. I'm writing this from a cafe in Florence, where I've been living for the past 3 months. I used the money from my honeymoon fund, and the deposits I couldn't get back from vendors, to take an extended break and figure out what comes next. Emily has been running Magnolia events while I've been gone, and she's done an incredible job. We're officially making her partner when I get back next month. It turns out that publicly exposing cheating at your own rehearsal dinner is excellent marketing for an event planner. My calendar is booked solid through next year with clients who want someone who doesn't take any nonsense. The aftermath was swift and decisive. Sophie was fired from her marketing job 3 days after the rehearsal dinner when a video of the event made it to social media. Apparently, one of the guests posted about it, and it went viral locally. Her company decided they couldn't employ someone whose behavior reflected so poorly on their client relations. Danny's situation was more complicated. His family business couldn't fire him, his part owner, but Greg took over as CEO and Danny's responsibilities were significantly reduced. His parents cut him out of family social events and made it clear he was no longer welcome at family gatherings if Sophie was involved. They tried to make it work for about 6 weeks. Sophie moved into Danny's apartment, and they played house while dealing with the social fallout. But it turns out that a relationship built on betrayal and secrecy doesn't translate well to real life with real consequences. They broke up in December. Danny has reached out several times, emails, texts, flowers sent to my office. He wants to explain and make amends. I've blocked him everywhere. Some betrayals don't deserve explanation or forgiveness. Sophie sent one long letter through my mother, full of apologies and explanations about how she'd been jealous of my success and happiness, how she'd convinced herself I didn't really love Danny because I work so much, how she thought she was saving me from a marriage that wouldn't work anyway. I threw it away without finishing it. The mental gymnastics required to justify that level of betrayal weren't worth analyzing. Greg has stayed in touch, apologizing repeatedly for his brother's actions and checking on my well-being. He's a good man who got caught in the middle of his brother's mess. Danny's parents sent a formal apology letter and a generous check, which I donated to a women's shelter in Savannah. Emily tells me the video of the rehearsal dinner has been shared thousands of times across social media platforms, usually with commentary about wedding justice or perfect revenge. I've become an accidental internet hero for women who've been betrayed by people they trusted. It's surreal but also validating. The most surprising outcome has been my relationship with my mother. Seeing her fierce protectiveness that night, the way she physically blocked Sophie from leaving, her ice-cold management of the aftermath, showed me a side of her I'd never appreciated. She's visited me twice here in Italy, and we've gotten closer than we've been since I was a child. As for me, I'm doing better than I expected. The initial pain was intense, not just losing Danny, but losing Sophie and the friendship I'd valued for 20 years. But the anger at their deception was stronger than the heartbreak over losing them. I'm proud that I stood up for myself instead of letting them manipulate me further. I've learned that being nice and trusting isn't the same as being naive or weak. I trusted people who were worthy of trust for years before this happened. Sophie and Danny proved themselves unworthy, but that says nothing about my judgment and everything about their character. I start therapy next week to work through some of the lingering trust issues, but honestly, I feel more confident and self-assured than I have in years. There's something powerful about standing up in front of 43 people and refusing to be a victim of someone else's choices. The wedding dress is still in my closet. Sometimes I think I should sell it or donate it, but right now it serves as a reminder that I was strong enough to choose truth over convenience, dignity over false peace. I'm flying back to Savannah next month to resume my life and my business. I'm not sure what romantic relationships will look like going forward, but I know I'll never again ignore red flags or explain away behavior that makes me uncomfortable. And if anyone tries to play games with my trust and my life, well, they can ask Danny and Sophie how that worked out. Update: thank you for all the supportive comments and messages. Yes, the party did happen the next day, about half the guests showed up, and we had a great time. Greg gave a toast about celebrating truth and strong women. Several people told me it was more fun than most weddings they'd attended. For those asking, I haven't heard from Danny or Sophie in months. I'm doing great. Italy is beautiful. And yes, I'm still an event planner. Business has never been better. Sometimes the best revenge is just refusing to let terrible people ruin your life.